In this video, I'll share the PDF that so many of you requested for creating your own mini book cover jig. I'll demonstrate 2 different ways you can use it and share tips on how you can use it to make your own mini hardcover style books just like this. Let's get started. I want to say a word of thanks. Amazing amount of feedback from you guys requesting the PDF. Thank you for being patient. This is the template. I'll have the link down below so you can download it and follow along. I went ahead and made 2 versions. Some of you might find this approach simpler to use, and others might like this version, which takes a little more care to make, but it ends up resulting in something very similar to the plastic version I used in my last video to create the notebook covers. It is faster to work with once you do have it put together. So once you have your print, select your cardboard. If you have a piece that's large enough, you can glue this in one piece. So just a few words about cardboard. It goes without saying, don't use pieces that are beat up, areas with damage already. These are compromised. They're going to be weak. It's going to start to bend, and it's going to create poor finishes on all your products. Cut out sections that are as flat as possible and as perfect as possible, and hang on to those. You can use them in projects as needed. Cardboard comes in many varieties. It varies in thickness, and usually as the thickness of the cardboard goes up, the corrugations, these flutes inside, become further and further spaced. The cardboards that have very fine fluting are usually thinner, and I think they're more suitable for something like making a template. Something like this can be strong, but because the fluting is wider in spacing, it has a little softness to it as well. When you're trying to create fine detail in something like a template, those flutes will create roughness, and you might not want that. Having a finer fluting will give you cleaner templates. Here's a cardboard with double layers of corrugation. This is very strong structurally. It makes a great base for a box, but not necessarily a good choice for making a template. I like these ones that are very thin. Paper tends to vary as well. Some of them have a coarser and more delicate paper. Some of them have a finer finish, and the paper just seems to be of higher quality. I kind of like this. It's a really smooth, rigid cardboard, fine corrugations, and has a rigidity that I think will work for something like a template. And you'll also find chipboard type materials. It's the outside of a cereal box. It does not have any corrugation. The benefit here, very smooth surface. You can use this to laminate corrugated cardboard, or you can make multiple layers of this. You get something that's thicker and very strong and rigid. If you don't have a clean piece of cardboard that is large enough for the whole template, it's all right to have multiple pieces. I'm thinking of using these 2 pieces that I have because they seem to be strong and thin. I think they will hopefully cut well. Making a quick mark so when I'm gluing, I don't end up positioned off the part. Use some scrap paper so you don't get glue on everything. Go ahead and put down some glue. Spread this out into a thin layer. Try to keep it even. This piece I'm going to glue over the side that has peeled away stickers. Might as well cover that up. Whenever you're gluing things, keep in mind what's going to show at the end and use it as an opportunity to cover up things that are messy you want to hide. Use an old book, put some weights on it. Let it dry for a few hours, maybe overnight, just so it's nice and flat and ready for the next step. Okay, now that everything is dry, let's cut these out. Doesn't matter what order you cut them in. Just be careful to follow the lines carefully. Do use a ruler or a straight edge of some kind, a sharp cutter, so you get nice clean edges. Being careful making the template will give you a template that's more useful in the long run. So spend a few extra minutes and try to prep it nicely to begin with. Rather than cutting through all in one push, I find you get a little bit of a cleaner cut by doing multiple lighter passes. I'm making these cuts pretty much right on the line. For something small like this, sometimes it helps to place a material of the same thickness under the ruler so it doesn't bow. You might have to make more lighter passes. All right, these are the pieces for one method of using this template, and then this is the jig itself. I made these lines extended to make it a little easier to get these cuts lined up. The center pieces are the trickiest because you have to make these corner cuts as sharp as possible without cutting through this corner material holding the jig together. So don't make any cuts into these orange sections that need to be held together. Start very carefully at the corner and stop short of cutting through. Having some patience for this part is important so you don't ruin those corners. Spend a few extra minutes. Try to make it nice and neat. You'll be happier using it later. I'm cutting all the way through at the start here and then lightening up as I come to the end and not cutting all the way through at the end. Then I'm going to come back and finish up. Then I can turn it around and finish the lines into the other corners. You may find it easier to flip it over and finish some of these corners from the other side. You may have to work this back and forth a few times. One of the problems of using cardboard for something like this is it will be inherently weak in the corners. So just be gentle with it. Don't force it. Make sure it's completely cut before you pull one of these pieces out. There we go. Okay, clean off your work area. Here are our final pieces. Version 1 has 2 covers, the spine, 2 spacers, and version 2 is like the plastic jig I used earlier. Now, for the first cover, I printed out these 2 designs. If you're going to go through the trouble of making these custom covers, you might as well make them unique. If you're not good at making your own, you can go online, find so many stock graphics, photos, things you can use, things you can customize a little bit. That's what I did here. This is a stock graphic, then I modified it and made it a little bit of my own. If you have a simple design like this, basically you're going to cut out your chipboard pieces, you're going to glue them in the back. If it's off a little bit, no big deal. If, however, you have something that you want centered on the cover and you want it to appear a particular way, in this case, I want the word reminders. I want a little bit of this to wrap on the front cover. So I'm going to position this roughly about where I want the cover to be, and I need a way to mark this paper. So I have a way to tell from the opposite side where I am. You can use an old credit card. I have this squeegee here. I'm going to use it to just press into this. Don't go so hard that you tear the paper, but you need it to be hard enough to leave a mark. And the back cover is going to be somewhere around here. Just going to make a small mark. This front reference edge and the bottom edge is what I'm looking for. When I flip this over, it might be a little hard for you to see in the camera, but I have a faint score line over here. If you can't see it, there's a line about here and here. I'll go over it with pencil so it's easy to see when I'm gluing. I'll use this piece of thin corrugated cardboard that I cut from a box to make the covers. You don't actually need 2 of these. One is a spare. You can line up these edges, line that up. Creating 2 covers. Let's do the spine first. Just line up that edge. You'll notice the covers vary in height, so make sure you keep them oriented properly. These will be our front and back cover and the spine. The way we're going to lay this out, grab some kind of straight edge. It'll help you keep things lined up. Position it on the bottom line. We're going to get glue on our cover, and we're going to drop it in right at that position, so our front cover ends up in the right place. Next, without glue, this will serve as a spacer. With glue on the spine, positioned here. Again, a spacer, no glue. Finally, the back cover coated in glue will drop in here. You'll press everything down, and that will be the final positions. All right. Now for the actual glue up, the only two pieces needed will be these spacers. Double check again, make sure you have the tall side facing up. Use a scrap paper to help glue everything. Have all your supplies ready so you can work quickly. I'm going to use just some scrap cardboard to spread the glue. Get a nice even coat all the way to the edges. And drop it in right on that line against your straight edge. Press it down, position a spacer. Don't have to press it too hard, keep it just lightly positioned. Get your next piece, just a thin amount of glue, not too much. You don't want glue on the edges, otherwise it'll glue your spacer. Drop it in here, press it down, and remove the spacer. That's to prevent the spacer from getting permanently glued in this place. Last piece, once again your spacer. Grab the piece and don't let the ruler move. Position the piece, remove your spacer. I moved it too quickly. Don't pull them away that quickly. The reason I'm trying to work quickly is because those are made out of cardboard and I don't want to glue them in place. Flip this over, smooth everything down so there aren't any air bubbles. Now for the cutting, using this technique, I'm not going to fuss too much about getting this exact. Just going to use the width of my ruler. If you don't have a small ruler, mark off approximately 1 centimeter or 2 and go all the way around evenly. This part is going to get covered up, so it doesn't have to be perfect. So I'm going to use the ruler and just cut off this piece and this piece. The corners do matter. You want thickness to be about 1.5 times the thickness of your cardboard. So we're aiming for about here on these corners. Position the ruler at about 45 degrees. Again, using this technique, we might not get a perfect finish, but this technique is supposed to be faster. If you're just making 1 or 2 and you're not planning to make 50 of these, you just want to get it done. So cut off these corners. Make sure there isn't any glue where you're going to be working. Brush on glue for this step. Work these edges in. And back to the liner, going to make it a little bit smaller. So if I was to position it here and line it up here, it'd be the exact same size. Instead, I'm going to make it a bit smaller. Keep this edge parallel, and I'm going to aim for that size. Width-wise, same thing. If that was the edge, I'm going to make it about the same, smaller in this direction. So right about here. Be careful when you're pressing in that you don't tear the paper. There you have it. Completed cover. Slightly crooked. And I made that to go with these green post-it pads. These will go in here and complete this book cover. This Elmer's glue is not going to hold this permanently. I'm just putting this in as a light temporary hold. Place some weights on it and let it sit overnight or longer so it dries thoroughly. Okay, so that's the technique using the basic template. A little slower and harder to work with, but if all you're making are 1 or 2, that's all you need. For the second version, now we can use a similar technique to what I used for this plastic jig in my last video. I'm going to use chipboard, line up one of the edges. Be careful because this bends. You don't want to bend it and force it to take on a shape and have your lines not come out parallel. Use that to mark the size this has to be. Cut it to height. Reposition, mark the width. Double check this drops in. You don't want it to be tight. Depending on how you trace those lines, you might make the pieces too loose or too tight. Mark this spine piece. Cut that first. Easier to hold a larger piece. Double check for fit. Those are our 3 pieces. For the second book cover, I printed out this design, customized it with a monogram on the front cover. If you're going to go through the trouble to hand make these as gifts or for yourself, make them unique, make them custom. Don't make them look like they came from the store. Make it something special. I forgot to put the marks for alignment and for the other piece. I will fix that in the PDF that you're going to download. For now, I'm going to just mark the center. Sorry about that. It's kind of important for convenience. Once again, the benefit of having a jig is you can easily position any cover graphics and get them exactly the way you want. Use marks as reference areas to cut. So cut a triangle there and a triangle here. Those 2 points will allow us to have exact alignment when we position on the reverse side. Get your pieces ready to glue in. Some scrap paper to help you glue, something to spread the glue with, and we glue. You need to glue all the way to the edges, but try not to have glops of glue hanging over the edges because they're going to get on your jig, and if it's made out of cardboard, it's going to stick. So line those up, make sure your marks are aligned. Try to work out any bubbles in the glue quickly before it dries. Then you can use the jig. If the material on this is strong enough, you can cut against it. If it's not, then I would say use a pencil and trace around it and then cut on that after removing the jig. I'm going to go ahead and cut alongside it. Again, some clean paper for gluing. Before I glue this, I'm going to go ahead and trim this piece as well. So the inside piece, I want to have part of the design and part of the background showing. So I'm not going to use this section. I'm going to move it up so you see part of the background as well. So you can slide this around, you can decide which part you want visible. Whatever you want here will end up on your front inside panel when this is complete, when you open the cover. So in my case, I want some of the background to also show. I'm thinking right about there. These marks will be where we're cutting. All these marks and along the bottom here. I want to double check that. I think I might have had some of it. I only cut it part of the way so my mark remains. This will line our inside. Okay, that takes care of the prep work. Now for the gluing. If you want the final finished books to look really crisp and professional, then stack them under some books or some weights overnight and let them fully dry. I'm placing cardboard in between to absorb any moisture, and then adding some weights on top. This will prevent the covers from warping and result in a more polished, finished look. One last point, I used an Elmer's glue to glue the pad to the book cover. That is not going to hold permanently. If you want something more permanent, you can try peeling the liner off the back of the pad and applying a stronger glue. You can also glue the back of the pad to the spine of the book cover, and that will make it feel even more like a book. And there you go. I hope you found this useful. Please be sure to share, comment, and subscribe. See you next time. God bless.